It's the Brandon Cruz Daily Fantasy Podcast, where I go and look at loan plays and strategies specifically designed for GPPs. This is a show of people who are already informed on daily fantasy sports and all these contests operate. If you have any questions related to NASCAR, this isn't a stupid question, feel free to shoot it my way on Twitter at BrandonCruzDFS. Most importantly, take everything you hear with a grain of salt and use your best judgment when making entries. Additionally, if you have a gambling addiction, that is just not my problem. Check your sense of feelings at the door. We're talking about the Bristol dirt race here in the Cup Series. Now, before we look at the sheet and everything that I put on screen, this is going to be a short video, and the only good information I'm going to be able to give out to the people on Patreon, to the people on YouTube, anybody who checks out my content, is going to be in the live shows this week. That's the only time I'm going to give any good information. I think that's really the only time anybody's going to have any good information. But we're talking about the Cup Series here at Bristol, and I'll explain that as we get in more and more. Check me out on Patreon, BrandonCruzDFS, if you want to support me, entering April 1st, just join on there. So, like, if you join now, you only get 6 days this month. So, join at the start of April if you want to be here now. I would advise you go look at the video I made on Monday. And I guess I need to clarify because, I didn't put my introduction in there. So, Bristol, yes, okay. I said it's going to be a one-groove racetrack. I believe the bottom line is going to be the dominant line in this race, where we see a lot of people go there. But I had people say, Brandon, it's not going to be a train race. They're going to be side by side. Okay, yeah, duh. It's a racetrack. Of course they're going to be side by side. It's Bristol. Of course you're going to see cars side by side. You're going to see some three-wide racing. You're going to see, different lanes. Just because there's different lanes doesn't mean that it's still not a one-groove racetrack, okay? So a lot of unknowns entering this race. So let's kind of walk through the drivers, and I'll talk on the notes here and some of the things I want to bring up. But you can play, if you want to go this direction, you can play Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Stenhouse, or you can easily play 3 10K drivers if you want to do that. I'm not going to do that. I think this is going to be very similar to a plate race in a sense of DFS construction. Probably a 4-2 is what I'm going to think is going to end up being optimal in terms of lineup construction. I just think that's the way it goes. I don't see a whole lot of different situations where it doesn't. Like, in terms of how this race is going to go, I don't know if we're going to necessarily have a big one, but we're going to have incidents, and we're going to have guys get taken out in wrecks and stuff like that. And if we ever, is it crazy for me to think we're going to have a caution every 20 laps, every 17 laps, somewhere around there? I don't think so. In a 250 lap race, that's not crazy. Typically any dirt race that's like 50 laps with anything, you have some cautions here and there. So I don't think it's crazy to expect carnage and wrecks in this race. And building that way, place differential is going to be where I'm aiming for. Now, obviously, I'm going to make lineups that are focusing on finding lap leaders, focusing on guys that can fit in the top 15 or finish in the top 15. But I think I'm going to primarily focus on place differential. And I think that's really about it. I'm approaching this as a plate track. I don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen, okay? We don't know. I've already complained about the racing surface enough. I don't want to annoy you guys with that. I do want to talk about some of the chalk and some of the kind of favorites going in. If you want to call them that. Obviously, Larson is probably the biggest favorite in the dirt guys, and I would argue that other than knowing how the track might change, I think that's really the only advantage the dirt guys have, the guys with a lot of experience. And there's a lot of people in here that have ran dirt, as teenagers early in their career. And so saying that, someone like Joey Logano doesn't have a lot of dirt experience, that's going to hurt him compared to Kyle Larson. I don't necessarily think it's going to go that way. I'm seeing a lot of people already starting to talk about Austin Dillon and how he's a favorite. Look, he won a 604 late model. Basically, that's the slowest of the 2 late model classes that they had at the Dirt Nationals. And he had a ton of money. Like, he basically beat up on a class that he shouldn't even have been in. So I mean, you see Fox pushing him. I'm seeing other articles already talking about how Austin Dillon should be considered because he won at Bristol. Like, come on, man, that's a bunch of garbage. Speaking of garbage, I'm not looking at Eldora at all. I'm not looking at any dirt racing experience at all. So let me explain or expand on that. If we entered this year normally, like how I'm entering this year normally, where I'm not looking at track history, where I'm looking at how they're running this year, I mean, that's been the way to go. In this race, you have practice, and I think this practice session is going to be more, eyeball test wise. Like let's talk about the practice lap data that I know people are going to try and break down because that's the only thing they have to break down. So the 2 practice sessions that the Cup Series have, you have a truck practice start, Cup practice, truck practice 2, and then Cup practice 2, all in the span of about 4 hours. And so this track is going to change a ton. It's going to change, tenfold between that first Cup practice and that second Cup practice, and even between the first truck practice and the second truck practice. And so I'm not looking at the lap by lap data in the practices. I'm not going to care about lap averages. I'm not going to care about 10 lap averages, 15 lap averages, fastest lap, fastest average lap. I don't care about any of that stuff, okay? I'm going to be looking, granted, I'll look at it to see where guys are running, but I'm not going to live and die on those hills, okay? The track, let's focus on the first Cup practice. Okay, so everybody goes out there. The first 15 minutes, they're goofing around. They have no idea what they're doing. So they go back in and make changes. And then they go back out and they're like, nah, it's not changed. I'm still too loose. I can't get it to turn. I'm getting in the wall, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then you go back into pit road. And when you come back, you're basically at like 25 minutes into the session at this point, 30 minutes into the session. So you get out and you start, okay, this car is feeling all right. Where are we on track times? Oh, what's that? Oh, maybe we're, 2/10 off of where the track started. Maybe we're 2/10 faster than the track started. Like, what are we going to do? Unless every single car was on the track at the exact same time, lap by lap by lap, yeah, then you could see who's quicker and who's not. But the track is going to change so much. These teams are going to be making so many changes. Throw the first practice out in terms of practice data. Just look at who you think is the best guy, or look at who you think is going to be competent in the heat races. Okay, then you go to practice 2. So these teams are going to have to guess on how the trucks are going to change the track, and then they enter practice 2 for the Cup Series, and they're like, oh man, we were spot on or we missed it. And so right off the bat, you're going to see some guys be really quick in practice 2, some guys are going to be really slow. And then people are going to be making changes based on how they think the track's going to change, and so lap times are going to vary. You're going to see this track, and I'm not even exactly sure what way it's going to go. I don't know if it's going to be slow to start before it's really packed in, then it's going to get fast before it starts getting really dry, and then once it gets dry, it gets more slick, and so you actually lose speed. And so the track is going to change so much, the lap times are going to change so much. Why am I focusing on practice data? Why am I putting that in my algorithms? Why am I using that to base who the best guy is? Oh, what's this? Kurt Busch had the 3rd best 15 lap average, but he's the only guy who ran a 15 lap average in the first 10 minutes of practice, where everybody else ran 15 lap averages at the tail end of practice. So we're going to run situations like that. So it doesn't matter. I'm using the eyeball test here. That's how I'm doing it. My rankings here are more so just where I think the guys are. And not really a whole lot. I guess I need to move down so you guys can read some of this stuff. Let's see. I think you guys already read that. Let's talk about this for an example. So this is going to be entertaining. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event. We don't get to say that too much. I doubt we ever see Dirt Bristol return at this point. I really doubt it, especially for the Cup Series. And if everybody's going to be looking at Eldora, especially for the Truck Series, good Lord. If they're using that data point, which isn't even the same type of track, it's like if I went to Dover regularly and I'm using Chicagoland, data, but just Chicagoland, no other intermediate tracks, nothing like that. Or if you want to go in even a more extreme, it's like if I'm going to, say, regular Bristol, and I'm using New Hampshire. Sure, it's close enough, but I'm not going to live and die by the track history or by how these guys did in Eldora in another series. I'm not caring about that type of stuff. I would seriously put like 30 cars in your player pool, because right now, the only thing that I'm going to be building lineups off of is how I think guys perform, between the practice sessions and in the heat races. And at that point, we're going to have our heat races, Saturday night, then the truck series. I'm not going to make another video, okay? I'm not going to make a video with like 8 hours of lifespan. I'll just save anything that I learn or the guys that I like for the live show, 10 a.m. on Sunday. Tune in, same channel right here. We've done it every week. We've had great viewership. That's really the only time I'm gonna be able to say anything with any confidence, any data, or not even real data, but any real confidence. That's where I'm gonna show up and talk about the guys that I like, the guys that I'm liking. That's why I don't have any my interest projected finish. I just have general. I could put everybody as C's, everybody as B's. I think everybody's even. The one thing that we do have to focus on is the chalk. I think Larson, Bell, Reddick, Austin Dillon, Stuart Friesen, and William Byron. I hate to say it, but I think he's going to have ownership from iRacing, because I don't think people understand how broken iRacing is, and it's not realistic at all. It's not a simulation. Their last patch, they just add a bunch of grip strips, and they broke different racetracks by, you can run the high line here. Well, now the high line is unrealistically the best line on most tracks now. And they just basically used, NR 2003 grip strips. And so I'm not basing anything off of iRacing, but I do think William Byron is going to gain ownership from that. And look, I've talked enough about this type of stuff. I'm going to enter practice with no opinions enter. I don't care who the driver is. I don't care what the equipment is. I'm going to see how these guys do. And I'm going to be building a lot of lineups, leaving a lot of money on the table. Some using all the money, some building for stacking the back type of guys, some not. That's just how it is. What am I going to come on here and talk about? Like, I know who's going to win this race. Am I going to lie to you? Am I going to say that? Because I don't know who's going to win this race. I don't know who's going to do well. There's no data you can look at. Oh, you're going to look at how Larson has done in a super light model, in a chassis that is not even anywhere similar to the Cup Series chassis. Like, what are we talking about here? So the live shows, man. Live shows this weekend. Truck live show around 5:30, around whenever the last heat for the Truck Series ends, because I'll just watch the Cup Series heats later. I'll watch it, on the side while I'm doing the live show on Saturday, but I'll go back and watch them to really pay attention. But, live show Saturday, right after the truck heats. And then Sunday, 10 a.m., that's when Pierce and I are going to break down who we like or who we don't like and things of that nature. A lot of unknowns, Anybody who thinks they know how this race is going to go is lying, straight up. Like, I don't know how this race is going to go. I'm assuming it's going to be wreck-filled, or at least people spinning out. And, we're 13 minutes into it. That's really about it, man. I don't have a whole lot of stuff to look at. Last thing is, I do think we have ugly looking crashes, like, wow, that's bad, or wow, that's dangerous, because there's a good chance they come down a straightaway, somebody's on the bottom, they slide up into the guy in the second lane and they go head first into the outside wall in a corner. I think that's a likelihood to happen. I wish I could bet the chance of a Earnhardt style wreck, because I think I could predict that way more than who I think is going to be fastest. Also in the heats, they're used, like, last thing, pulls, like, we're going to decide the starting grid on passing points. Okay, I understand that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that whoever gets the most passing points is the best car. It's just whoever passes the most amount of cars in the heat. So some people might spin out. They might have a wreck in the heat. They might have a soft heat to where it's a good driver starting back. Then you got all Rick Ware cars in your heat. And so don't, think whoever's starting up front is going to be the best car. Don't go in thinking Kyle Larson's going to be the best car, because I think this is a very even field. I think it's very similar to a plate race in a sense of lineup construction. So that's how it is, man. I wish I could tell you more. But that's really it, man. Wait for the live show on Sunday. And thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it. If I can find that. Yeah, there we go. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it.